Let's start
Mark,
recording.
is
So,
this is this the last chapter of this
sorry?
course? Is this chapter 4 is the last chapter?
No, no, we have 9 chapters.
Oh my god.
So there's a little bit. So let's get going with it. All right. So I'm not going to go through every word on the slides. I'm not going to read the slides. But what I want to do is just sort of uh, get you sort of ready for it. The idea of the service desk is we have to do writing in the service desk. Hyder's here. So welcome, Hyder. Uh, the writing that we talked about
Thank you, sir.
before, we mentioned emails, but there's a lot of other things as well. And particularly mentioning here the knowledge management system. I wonder if you can see that there. Oh, let me go back. The knowledge management system is integrated into the incident management system. So I showed you a slide last time and it showed like 3 tickets and the tickets were closed. But when the ticket was closed, the analyst wrote something about the ticket and also categorized the ticket with a particular solution. So the solution was recorded in a database and tied to the type of incident that it was. What this forms the basis of our knowledge management system. The knowledge management system is like a database that the service desk agent can go to find solutions to common problems. And so that requires a service desk agent always to update every time they close a ticket, to update with the solution and to try and how you say to try and relate that solution to previous solutions if they have had the same one, and that's a big sort of help going forward. So that one aside, we talked about knowledge management system. Next thing here is reports. This is a very sort of generic topic. Basically, whether you're in a service desk or any work that you have in a business, you're probably going to have to write some reports. And so you you should have some understanding of this already from your communications course, right? So you've done a communications course, I think, or you're doing a communications course, and you probably have to write reports for that. So I'm not going to sort of reteach you that because I think that you've been taught that. Am I wrong? I think that you probably are writing reports as part of your communications course. If you've never written a course, then you might want to look at some of these points, right? So basically, if you're going to be asked to write a report, and you probably will be in the service desk or whatever job it is that you go to after graduating from the college, one of the best sort of hints that you can have is to ask exactly what are you looking for in this report from the person who's asked you to give the report, and then ask if you can see a similar report that's been written in that business environment. By looking at a similar report, you'll see kind of what's expected in terms of how the report should be. And so, yeah, here's some types of reports that you might be asked. The point that I've just made is put here on the slide, which is find out exactly what you're supposed to do in your report and see if you can find a similar report so that you can see what are the sort of little nuances, what are the little tricks that people have in this office in their writing of the report, so your report will fit in with that. And as it says, then maybe show somebody what you're thinking of doing in the report and get some feedback from them on that. Um, the next, so that's reports. The next point here, we see this diagram, which we're just going to spend a second on, with policies, standards, and procedures in a pyramid. The idea being that policies are higher level, so they could be at an organizational level. Well, actually, all of these things could be at an organizational level, but policies are above standards. Standards flow out of policies. So once we have established policies for the organization, from them will come standards, which, as it says there, we use the word, it's a little bit more specific. Lastly, procedures are more specific still, and they're down to the level of step by step, do this, do that, do that. And so I hope we get that idea that your policy is going to sort of inform your standards, which are going to be more specific, and your procedures are going to be step by step. great opportunity for a test question, actually, on that, because it's so, well, the word I would use is it's so formulaic, or that it follows a particular formula, and so therefore it's easy to write a question about it, right? So I could ask you, what's the difference between policy, standards, and procedures, and you could talk about the higher level versus the lower level, and one informing the other. Um, Yes. So procedures are explicitly stated. They should be step by step, etc. You may be asked to write a guide, as it says here, an analyst guide. Good morning, Ali. Uh, yeah, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. As it says there, the analyst guide would be one of many guides that we would consider, or many documents in your organization that would be considered living documents. And so it's quite possible that you'd be asked to update a document. And yeah, analyst guide might be one of that. So what do I mean by an analyst guide? So it'd be things like, these are the steps and procedure that you need to do in order to fix this particular type of incident that comes, that type of thing. So it's kind of related to um, to what I was talking about in the knowledge base, but it's more sort of settled, and less. It's sort of combining lots of information from lots of sources that we've have in the service desk, to something which we notice sort of trends. These kind of things happen, and this is the way we respond to them. Um, all right. So in your writing, what's really, really good in technical writing is you're not really asked to be prosaic, to sort of tell a sort of story with some kind of plot, that type of thing. Basically, it's fact based, and so the way that we present it is in that fact friendly way, which is going to be short, concise, dot
Mm.
points, numbered, that type of thing. And that makes it, I think, easier to write and easier to understand. And that's the kind of the way that you should approach that. But having said that, there sort of are English constructions that we use in our language that can make a report better or worse. So, for example, it says that we use the active voice. We don't use sort of passive words. We use the active voice. Something is doing something. It's that type of thing. The other thing is that we tend not to be first person or second person. We go with the third person active voice. So what that means is we talk about the analyst, rather than I do this and I do that and she does that. It's you get the idea. Um, then of course we have all kinds of tools to check our accuracy of our grammar and our spelling, and it's really inexcusable nowadays in the year 2021 to publish anything that has poor spelling in it, and probably poor grammar. With the grammar side of it, what I'm saying here is you do have a little bit of flexibility, because you can use the dot points. Dot points don't have to be fully constructed sentences fitting into perfect um, paragraphs that lead on to each other, that type of thing. Dot points are these factual sort of um, uh, standalone little bits of information that we put on our documents, and it's better for the reader and it's better for the writer. Now, the point here and the bottom of this slide is about a style guide, and I think I have mentioned to you in our writing. I'm not sure if maybe it's another course, but if you are going to write something, you will find in Microsoft Word, if you go to references, you'll find that there's that you have many different options of ways of presenting your references for a document. And references should follow a style. And so there's different styles. Many of them have been adopted by different universities. There's the Harvard style. There's as it mentions here, the Chicago style. There's others that are styles that are produced by different professional organizations, like the APA, the American Psychological Association and MLA. So these styles, we would come across them in our Word documents when we go to insert a reference or a citation. We choose a particular style, and you should have a style and then stick with it. Well, what style will we use? There's probably some document in your organization which specifies what style you would use. So here at the College of North Atlanta, I think we're MLA, but there is a document here at the college, which is a College of the North Atlantic Style Guide. And besides saying how do we do our references, it does discuss things like what kind of fonts do we use in our documents, where do we put our logos, that type of thing. When you're working in an organization, that's really kind of important. If you start writing and printing documents, or not printing, but PDF nowadays, right? And emailing out or whatever, or putting onto your server documents that do not follow the style guide, somebody is not going to be happy about that. And so, yeah, you need to search it out, find the style guide, and sort of follow it. Yeah. So I won't say too much more about that. Yeah, so that's just a little bit more on that. I think I've mentioned all of these things. We use the third person, active voice, not don't use the first person. That's general across all reports. I mean, scientific reports are like that. We don't write and say, I did this, I did that, she did that. The researcher did. It's that type of thing. This third person type of thing. Um, all right. Now the other thing here point is, so you're an IT person, you're working in an IT in a business environment. Maybe the people that are going to be reading your report are not IT people, in which case you have to adjust your language to their understanding. And if you start using technical terms, you need to perhaps define them. And a lot of times we'll have in a document a maybe even a glossary that we attach to the document. Okay, I've already talked about that. And concise and specific. I think I mentioned concise. That has to do with the dot point thing. Being specific, yeah, I may not have mentioned that. So we don't want to speak in general terms like we did if we would if we were doing a philosophical sort of treatise. What we're doing in a technical document is should be focused on facts that we can research and find that are available to people. And so, yeah, facts, figures, we could include in our reports, tables, diagrams. Yeah. All right. If we use jargon, so there's different kinds of jargon. I hope you know the meaning of the word jargon. That's a technical term that, or it doesn't have to be technical, but it's a term used by a subset of the
Hey Siri, what's
population
jargon?
in terms of the way they speak. Um,
Hey Siri, what's jargon?
what's jargon? Are you asking me? What's jargon? So, for example, in the IT world, we have a lot of words that we use that are only used in the IT worlds. If I'm talking about servers, if I'm talking, well, that's a good example, I think. A server. I'm mentioning a server. I mean, if you were at McDonald's, a server prepares the French fries and brings them to your table, right? If you're talking to somebody from McDonald's and you're going to update their computer system and add a new server, you might have to explain that the server you're talking about, it doesn't wait tables, but that server, is a computer that's connected to a network and has software, a particular software installed on it. I, I hope that makes sense to you. So, if we're so yeah, words that are related to a specific field in a specific way. That's what we mean by jargon. And so you may have to actually define them and describe how they're used in your document. And I made this point. This is the point in this slide is about the being concise, short points in your report. It shouldn't be too wordy. Now, the consistency thing, there's a nice example in the next slide after this about consistency. In our English construction, the way that we put together our words in a paragraph or whatever, that we have many different options that we can use. We don't want to mix them up. And so here's an example of that being mixed up. to provide customers with a single point of contact, minimization of support costs. See, we're using two different ways, two different constructions of our point in this one, right? And this one, to provide, minimization, minimize the. So those are three different ways of presenting a fact. What we should do is choose one of them and stick to it. So that's what they've done here to be consistent. Provide customers, minimize, minimize. So we're using the same kind of grammatical construction in doing that. And that's what we want to do. We don't want to be mixing things up. I'm sure you've come across that before. And I mentioned a minute ago, and so I'll mention it again here. There's no excuse nowadays in the year 2021 for handing in any sort. No, well, handing in sounds like you're at a college, which you are, right? But what I mean is, imagine you're working at a service desk for for um, delivering a report to somebody or putting something on your server that has grammatical or spelling mistakes. There's no excuse for that. And why I say there's no excuse for that, because there are um, uh, checkers that are available too. I mean, everybody, Grammarly is free, and you can just add it as a plugin to your to all of your writing. You know, I have it on my Google account, so therefore it works with my Gmail. But I also have it in my Microsoft, so it works with all my Word documents and things like that. So if I'm making grammatical mistakes, that's because I'm being a bit slack, because I do have something that is going to check that for me, and you should have that too. Oh, no. Okay, so I'm imagining in the world in the year um, 2025 or whatever. I mean, even now, right? I start talking to my phone, and I can write a Word document without typing a key, and that I didn't buy any special software. It's sort of there. And so, I mean, yeah, you've got that all kinds of help. You've got um, some of you will be faster at typing than you would be at talking to your phone anyways, but there's all kinds of things to make it easier for you. So and the reason why I mentioned that is, in my phone, the not only is there the software there to take what I'm talking and put it into text. That's also in YouTube, right? I mean, you put a YouTube video up, and it puts us what do you call them? Subtitles go on the bottom of the screen without you even saying asking for it, right? It just does it. So I mean, it's the software is there. It's very easy to sort of get verbal communication into text, but then the trick is to get it into meaningful and correct text. Because what you'll notice in a lot of that stuff that's captured by your phone is not going to be actually correct. The words will be wrong. So if you're doing that, you want to sort of make sure that you sort of check it. Okay. A lot. We've spoken quite a bit about email, and so I'm not going to go into this stuff in detail because I think we've already done it. I mean, I made a big point about being very careful about your email because of the fact that it's very persistent. Now, what I mean by that is your grandchildren one day could stumble across a server and read the emails that you wrote to your colleagues. So, you know, that's some kind of how you say that's going to hold you accountable to whatever you've written. So you have to be sort of careful with that. And there's various things that impact upon that. So, for example, distribution lists. If you're sending emails to the wrong people, you got to be careful about that. Um, there's so much email. People don't like receiving email that isn't related to them, and especially busy people in higher management. So we want to sort of be very careful and thoughtful about who's actually receiving this email. And so we have email lists, and we want to make sure that we keep those up to date. Standardizing your signature, with all of your email clients that you have, whether you're using Outlook or whatever, Gmail even, um, you can add a signature to all of your documents. Now, if you're working in an organization, probably that'll be part of the style guide that you have, how your signature is supposed to look. And so here at the college, for example, we have that. Um, And so on that, I mean, we had a time where nobody sort of cared about it too much, but more recently we've had a few communications come from the management saying, we want you all to use a signature, and this is the signature method that we want you to use. And so that's quite common. And some organizations, they'll also require you to add a disclaimers at the bottom of your emails, and warnings, legal warnings. If you receive this email is private communication. If you receive this and it's not intended to you, please delete. Those types of things. So, bearing in mind that the world we live in, there's a lot of laws, and security is an issue, and you want to make sure that your email is reflecting the best possible on you and your organization. Um, so this is a little bit more about writing emails. We have to bear in mind that the person who's going to receive our emails is a person, and so they have feelings, and they can very easily misunderstand sharply written emails. That's a big problem that happens. And so we have to sort of be careful with our instruction with our writing of our email, to be very uh, generous and gentle, I would say, if it's in an email, because it's quite easy for people to misunderstand you. And that's why I said earlier on that uh, that if you have something hard to say to somebody, and often we do, then the best place to do that is probably a face-to-face communication. Um, and probably the worst way to do that is in an email. And so these are points about that. Be forgiving. There's a lot there about not going into big debates. I mean, online generally, right? Um, but heated debates on an email, long emails, emails that are 20 pages long. I mean, that should be a report, right? Not an email. Personally, I think 1-2 pages max, right? Keep it short. People have lots of emails. They don't want to sort of be going through and trying to sort of follow some convoluted logic through a long discussion in an email, and also back and forth sort of um attacks and contradictions. Shouldn't be on email. Absolutely not. And then the worst ones you see is those type of thing where one person writes something, and then another person counters with a saying they're wrong, and then forwards it to a broad circulation, and it's like, why am I receiving this, just gets people annoyed. So yeah, as I say, if you have that kind of um, negative sort of interaction, best to keep it sort of private, I think. There's something there about, yeah, so we don't use email as the place for us attacking other people. If you want to do that, should be something a bit more private, and between you and the individuals. I mean, sometimes you do have to hold people up. There's something that can't be ignored, and but that's best done by sort of talking to them. Okay. Now, forms and templates. Yeah, I think that's it. So the idea of this one here is to show you a signature. So this company here, if it's a company, they got their little logo thing going on. They've got a way that they do their signature. You need to find out about that for whatever organization you're working in. Okay. You know what I mean by idioms there. Um, uh, Little expressions that are understood in a very narrow cultural base. Um, you know, um, yeah. So what I mean by that is people so the English language, we have the English language, which is found being spoken by people all around the world. However, there's people in some little villages in Scotland that would be talking to each other and having some little joke, and they would use some phrases that somebody here in Qatar or somebody in Australia or Canada would not understand anything that they're talking about. Right? And that's what we mean by idioms. just their little expressions that are very narrowly understood. So and we're actually kind of lucky here in Qatar, I suppose, because especially among people who speak English, which is just about everybody. And I'm sorry, I can't really comment on the Arabic, but I imagine it's kind of the same. But certainly among people who speak English, we have such a broad backgrounds of people that speak English that we tend to go toward this very we focus on the common ground between us. And so the way that even the accents that people have, I mean, I've heard people describe that, there's Middle East people, Middle East expatriates who are speaking English. They sound kind of the same but different than people in their own countries, and that's because of the need to be able to communicate with people from lots of different backgrounds. And I imagine that might be similar in the Arabic as well. But you could tell me more than I know about that. And that's basically that for our discussion on written communication. It is kind of important. Any questions regarding that?